It's not what was predicted. Often there was an assumption in the academic literature that maybe what the academics rather sort of bloodlessly call first-generation migrants, people who were born overseas and come to the UK, might well choose to return in retirement. There was less expectation that their kids who were born here in the UK would want to do so. That wasn't expected in the kind of standard models of international migration and integration.
They are on holidays for 4 weeks. It is paradise. After 4 weeks, they're back in England, and then they are yearning to go back. So the first opportunity they have and the first business plan they can come up with, they're running back to Sierra Leone to start.
When I'm here, I feel like a woman, whereas when you're in the West, you're a black woman. Like you're instantly labelled.
I want to say that I didn't just jump on the bandwagon when it was too late. You know, I was there when the movement was going on, and I thrived on it too. So, yeah.
The death toll from mudslides has now reached 500.
In Western media, we're often told the same stories about Africa.
A cover journalist has been shot dead.
The images we see are often of people leaving African countries and trying to settle in the West. The latest data from the ymnnx suggests that in 2017, only 2 British people migrated from the UK to sub-Saharan Africa. But there's a new wave of young British people choosing to leave the UK and place African countries to live and to work.
I'm moving to Africa, Zambia.
I finally moved to Rwanda.
I've been working on relocating.
These young people are born in the UK, are educated here, often have well-paid jobs, but they're all choosing to uproot and move to African countries which many know nothing about and have never lived in before. One of these countries attracting more and more young people from the UK is Sierra Leone, and I want to know why.
There's money to be made in setting up new businesses in West Africa. That these are growing economies with growing middle class. There are an increasing number of international companies that want to have a foothold in West Africa, and so those members of the diaspora who kind of can move freely between two countries, who understand both places well and how business works in both places, are best positioned. They have a particular advantage from the perspective of those companies. So there's all sorts of other opportunities that are arising from that particular advantage that those individuals have as transnational kind of individuals who can move easily between the UK and Sierra Leone or UK and Nigeria.
Rica is packing up to move from her home in northwest London to Sierra Leone permanently next week.
I want to do different things apart from my career. You know, my career is there. It's something that's going to take time. You know, especially working in migration, you have to do a lot of internships and volunteering. So I decided that, I want to start a business and I want to start a foundation with that. My business that I want to start is a facial skincare line, and it's 100% Sierra Leonean, and it can't practically work out if I'm in another country. So I'd want to go back, speak to farmers, research, do some product research on what I'm trying to do and see how viable it is to do there.
Why leave the UK for Sierra Leone? What is it in the country that is drawing you?
In the UK, being two things at the same time, there isn't space for it, for that duality. There's just not space to be one thing and the other, whilst in Sierra Leone, because I did a lot of research before I upped and just abruptly thought, I'm going to leave. When I'm back home, there are lots of millennials that are moving back, to do things. I have a friend of mine who's a lawyer and a rapper. That's not something that's possible in the UK. Whilst, in Africa, there is that niche for hybridity. There are people who do two things that are quote unquote conflicting to the other, and they thrive on it. It's uncertain as to what would happen next, but I will have no regrets about it. Absolutely not.
Rica's not alone in exchanging her life in the UK for one in Sierra Leone. I came to East Street Market, a popular shopping destination for the London Sierra Leonean community, to meet Dr. Vivian Ling, who has carried out extensive research on the British Sierra Leonean diaspora.
They can navigate, international kind of markets and connections, and have a sense of vision that possibly young people growing up in Sierra Leone itself might not have. You know, the mayor of Freetown is someone who was from the UK.
Just in regards to race relations, do you feel like that could be something that's leading people to want to move back also?
There is a sense in which race constrains the possibilities of black people in this country, and if you don't have to deal with that, it's a wonderful liberation. Maybe we should just go back to Africa and we won't have to deal with all this crap anymore. You may still be treated in some respects like something of an outsider if you've been brought up in Britain.
Yeah.
You know, the JC,
Absolutely.
the idea of the JC.
Oh my goodness,
yes,
you know your lingo.
Of course, you know, just come, Johnny just come,
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
People who've just come back and therefore are ripe for exploitation because they don't know the rules or have the contacts. I guess it's easy to think of Sierra Leone as a kind of the promised land, but it's a hard place to do stuff. It's a hard place to do business and get by, and you have to be able to put up with a lot too.
Simche's been in Rica's shoes before, trying to start a business from scratch in Sierra Leone. However, she's now back in the UK, and I want to know why. Can you tell us a little bit about your cake business?
I want to move back, and I wanted to see what business opportunities I could have while I was out there. I also don't want to have to ask my parents for money. So I was like, okay, when I went over in June before graduation. And because I kept baking for people and their events and stuff, my friend was like, oh, you should consider selling them when you come. So I was like, oh yeah, that's a cool idea.
Though her business did better than expected, it still wasn't enough to sustain Simche on its own, and with the country on the brink of a government election, job opportunities were scarce.
It is West Africa, and elections tend to go harder out there. It makes where we get our aid from more resilient to give out contracts within that period of time as well. So my dad was like, oh, in his words in Creole, he was like, oh, I didn't send you to school to cook. Yeah, to cook. It just made sense for me to come back, get to where I need to be, save and go. So if I get this established and I get a job out there, I think I'll be pretty comfortable. More comfortable than here.
Everyone keeps talking about starting a business, and business seems to be the sort of hot topic at the moment. So I've decided to come and speak to a really well-renowned businessman in Sierra Leone who has been working as a businessman in the country for over 40 years, and I'm hoping he can give us an insight into the current economic situation in Sierra Leone and whether it's actually feasible for all of these young Brits to be moving to start businesses over there. Do you feel like it's a good idea for these young Brits to be moving over to Sierra Leone?
It works for a few. For example, my son went there, found a wife, is happily married and running his little business. But for a lot, they soon find the realities on the ground, and it is difficult for them to stay. The Sierra Leonean businessmen don't have vast amounts of capital. Only a few do. And because of that, and because of the current situation, it is very difficult to do business.
How did you feel when your son told you that he wanted to move to Sierra Leone?
I was shocked. Because when he finished uni and started working in Deloitte, which is only one way you go every year, so they give you a big salary increase and bonuses and things. I was hoping that some of those bonuses would now be rubbing down to me. And I could leave work early, I thought he was crazy. I thought something has gone, he started smoking something. I tried to convince him otherwise, but he was adamant. And anyway, as God would have it, it has turned out well.
Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Salon for this week.
So I've spoken to young Brits and academics who have told me why they think the diaspora are moving back, but I don't think I'll get the full picture until I speak to the people who have already made the move. Today I've used my green passport to find out more about why people are turning away from the red. In my first few days here, I managed to track down Calvin, Con's half Sierra Leonean, half Jamaican son who moved here 6 years ago.
I took a mini sabbatical from work, and as soon as I got back, I quit my job.
Considering you were born in the UK, bred in the UK, went to school in the UK, it was literally all you knew, and you had to leave all of your friends and your family behind. Was it difficult to uproot?
Looking back on it, it was actually a life-changing decision, but I mean, at that time I didn't see it like that. The way I figured it was that it's better to go like now and try to be like part of the growth story of like Africa Horizon. People who come at the end, it's much more difficult for them to be successful than the people who are there at the beginning or during.
Since moving, he met his wife, who was originally from London.
She's Sierra Leonean, but she came for like holiday, we met, and she just happened to be finishing university. Same like kind of mindset, well, I may as well try living in Sierra Leone, what's the worst that can happen? So she ends up marrying me, that's the worst which happens.
I've been trying since I landed to speak to a representative of the Sierra Leonean government, and after 4 hours of waiting, I was finally granted 10 minutes with the Minister of Planning and Economic Development, Nabila Tunis. She's come directly from a meeting with the President and is due to board a plane immediately after my interview.
You can only make an impact if there's something to fix, so leaving, the comfort of a very well-structured system, coming to Sierra Leone and knowing that there's so much that you can do is very motivating as well. You wouldn't want to come into a system that's already set, everything's perfect. You cannot make an impact.
What do you think needs to be done specifically in Sierra Leone to accommodate members of the diaspora?
We have studied, we have listened, we have engaged. We have had several conversations as to how we could make our country more conducive to accommodate, people in the diaspora who have shown a keen interest to come back. We're hoping to make some tangible gains in moving forward on education and health, which is at the fore of our national development agenda.
Yasmin and Yasmin have more than just their names in common. The bloggers met on Twitter before both migrating from the West to Sierra Leone. One an American citizen and the other British, they now run a podcast together in Sierra Leone.
We are White Square Pod.
What attracted me to come back to Sierra Leone, it's funny how I say back even though I'm born in the UK. Mm-hmm. We've seen a lot of people also relocate, and I just feel like I like the idea of implementing my skill set that I've learned overseas and then putting it into use somewhere that actually needs it.
Do you guys have any plans for moving back?
Where? Yeah, good question.
back to the UK, back to America.
God forbid. No.
God forbid.
Being black in America and being black in West Africa is different. Especially since the socioeconomic, most of the socioeconomic backgrounds of Black Americans, or the expectations rather, is that you're from the ghetto, or you don't know your father, or you come from a single parent household. That's not the case for me. I have a different experience. Because I don't relate to that kind of struggle, I was deemed as less black. Here, we have different experiences and perspectives of Sierra Leoneans, but I don't feel so much as an outsider than I do in the West. Especially now when I go and I travel, I'm like, wow, I actually used to live here.
Yasmin also runs a hair and cosmetics business.
Not everyone is aware that, you can make superior or good products in Sierra Leone. As soon as they see the packaging, oh wow, no overseas product. No. Made in Sierra Leone, as you can see the flag. But they're like, really? That salon? Yeah.
Proudly made in Sierra Leone.
Proudly made in Sierra Leone.
There's just one last person I wanted to catch up with before leaving Sierra Leone. I'd heard from the minister about how Sierra Leone was welcoming young British people and met aspiring young business owners from the UK like Calvin, but I had a feeling the challenges of moving to a new country were sometimes overwhelming, and wanted to see if Sierra Leone was meeting all of Rica's expectations. So Rica, first of all, how are you? I know it's been a few months since I last saw you, and we're a long way from the white wall that I first interviewed you in front of.
A lot's changed. I feel as though it's been like a huge life transition. You have to first of all be very open-minded, that anything can happen, that your mindset and what you're used to isn't the be-all and end-all.
Tell me, have you started the skincare lineup that I know you were so eager to begin when we were back in London?
The beauty cosmetics line, I'm still focusing on that, but I've realized with research that it's a lot. Setting it up and making it official and, trying to make it a national brand is very it's quite, not very, but quite hard. And why it's hard, because it takes a lot of time. The process is very long. I'm starting a paintballing business. Wow. So I've kept it under the wraps. I think since I've come, I did like a full 2 weeks of researching what can be done for both that and the cosmetic line, how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost. And I was like, okay, so fine. You know, if I give myself a 4 or 5 month projection, this can literally be off the ground by summer.
Knowing what you know now, would you still encourage others to come?
Yes, definitely. I feel like there need to be more, you know, people of our generation from the diaspora coming back to Sierra Leone, you know, kind of rendering their expertise, but also sharing their experiences and coming to actually sponge in others' experiences as well. It was a fantastic decision. I don't regret it. And I'm just looking forward to the, you know, to the many more adventures I'm going to have in Sierra Leone.
Africa is becoming increasingly more fascinating to those in the West. For some, it holds the promise of a fresh start. For others, the chance to find love. And though it's still a difficult place to live, the reality is it's countries like Sierra Leone are offering opportunities to Britain's young people, which many seemingly just cannot refuse.